Hey everybody, Elsie Rosie here, and welcome back to the O Ship Show. On today's episode, we are going through Chapter 3 of The Lost Golden Boy. Last time we left, Golden was taking a little trek down memory lane, and honestly, I love these past memories. Also, I listened to that last recording. Why was there thunder when purple appeared? Excuse you. Past LC, what did you do? Well, hey guys, let's dive right in. I will see you all at the end of the video.
Previously, with the Lost Golden Boys. As the children sang and danced to the final song, they didn't notice a figure who stood behind them, dressed in dark purple. The uniform that he and Scott had agreed on. He was watching them. A soft grin on his face. He was out of sight of the parents and had nothing to worry about. His hair covered his eyes. Golden only remembered this sense of unease at that man returning to work. Something about him was just off. Ever since the accident, he had lost a sense of self, or perhaps the purple man was always like this. What Golden didn't know was at the same time he and Spring were singing their theme song and coming to the end, this man was planning on how he was going to take these children's lives away. The phrase, "they're next," repeated in his mind over and over again like a sick mantra. That's all he could focus on, getting his next tip. Golden and Spring had reached the end of their song, unknown of the rising danger in the crowd. Spring rose his microphone up to the sky. "Bye, kids!" He waved his mic up in the air. "We'll see you all next time!" Golden finished the show with one last bow. Golden and Spring stepped back, and the curtains closed around them. Outside of the curtains, the children cheered their goodbyes to the show. "Bye, Golden Freddy! Bye, Spring!" Right as they finished, the purple man stepped closer. The parents weren't looking and the animatronics were gone. Now was his chance. "Hello, children." He smiled down at them, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. But the children were so happy about their show, and they believed that they were completely safe in this diner. Besides, this Fazbear worker wore the uniform. He must be safe, right? "Hi, mister!" They all cheered in unison. Behind the curtain, the two golden creatures paused in their actions. The two waited, frozen in place, listening. "There's a party in the back with Spring and Golden Freddy. Would you all like to come?" the purple man asked. His eyebrows slowly raised, as if gears were turning in his head to make them move. The idea of seeing another performance with their favorites was amazing. "Yeah!" the children agreed. The man chuckled to himself. "It's too easy," he mused to himself, "just like last time." Behind the stage, Golden and Spring locked eyes. There wasn't a party planned in the back. Purple began to guide the children to the back as their parents' gaze was away. But he was stopped by one voice. "Sorry, children, but..." The children spun around. The purple man scowled as the children ran up to the owner of the voice. "Spring!" The girl with curly hair wrapped her arms around the ankles of Spring Bonnie. The red-headed boy joined her on Spring's other side. "You all have to go home now," he reminded the children who were snuggling up to him. He couldn't resist. He reached down and and nuzzled their hair. Golden was in a similar situation, but he didn't want to leave the children just yet. He hated when they went. He reached down and brushed the hair of the children at his feet. He had the blonde little girl who loved to sing the chorus, and the little boy with the dark hair. This boy was one of Golden's regulars. He loved going to see the shows. "Golden Freddy," he whispered as he snuggled closer to Golden. Golden found himself overwhelmed by such love and affection of these children. In the long run of things, he was still rather new to performing. He had only been doing this for 5 years. But having moments like this made all of the onstage jitters worth it. We'll take you all to your parents." His eyes jumped from child to child, so that way they each knew that they were safe with the yellow creatures before them. Golden checked on Spring, who, even with the children so close, was tense. Spring's eyes had remained on the man before them. Spring's arms hooked behind his back, his ears perked straight up to the ceiling. He was smiling, but it wasn't the same smile he had on stage. It was a smile, but his eyes weren't in it. One of the children, the blonde little girl, had started to shiver. She was looking up at Spring. She wasn't used to seeing Spring like that. Golden's eyes widened. He reached up and took off his top hat and placed it on her head. This made her laugh and return her attention back to Golden, allowing the child to be happy and Spring to take care of the problem that laid ahead. Spring nodded to the man before him. "That means you too, sir. It's time to go," he said. Golden was, and still is, unaware of this. But at this time, just before their show, Scott had told Spring to be wary of Purple. Spring had promised that he would. The Purple man's scowl deepened. "Damn robots." "Fine," he huffed. "Such a gullible group. And now they go to waste." The Purple man carefully rotated on his heels and began walking to the front of the diner, his mind already scheming what next to do. "I'll wait in the back and wait till morning. Then, once the robots are asleep, I'll use Spring or Golden to lure the children away before their parents even see." The man's grin had returned to his face, stretching a little too long across his high cheekbones. He slipped his hands in his pockets. He crept down, out of the main party room, into the hallway. He turned to his right, down the hall to go to the back of the diner. The lights around him began to flicker as he went further and further into the employees-only section of the restaurant. Just like last time. His thoughts began to circulate about his last little adventure in the diner. But what he didn't notice was a collection of 5 gray forms with dark streaks down their cheeks, and each different creature had an aura of color around them, shadows of children. They followed after him, making no sound, their eyes glowing white. Tonight was the night. They wouldn't allow this man to enact his plans. The children in the center, whose glow was fading gold, led the group. Not this time. But Golden Freddy knew nothing of this moment in this time at all, and didn't know about it in the present time either. In his current moment, his attention was all on the children that he was still in charge of. Spring and Golden didn't get too far when they were trying to drag the children back to their parents. Instead, they decided to entertain the children with some cuddles. Hopefully the parents will realize that their children are still not there, and they'll come and find the animatronics. Golden held the little girl who had refused to give him back his hat by her hand. Her free hand was up in the air and above her head. "Look at me! I'm Golden Freddy!" Waving her hands back and forth, Golden's top hat had slid down her face and making her voice sound rather muffled. It was far too big for her. Golden chuckled, looking down at the little girl. "Yes, you are," he agreed. In Golden's other arm, he held the child with the darkest hair in the group. The child was snoring lightly and had buried his face in Golden's chest. He also had his little arms and little legs snuggled up to Golden's chest. Golden held him close so the child wouldn't be disturbed. Spring Bonnie's two kiddos under his care were a bit more adventurous than the ones in Golden's charge. The redhead had climbed up the back of Spring's legs and arms and then yanked his hair until he was laying his upper body on top of Spring's head. Spring's ears spread out to make room for the little daredevil. He glanced up and chuckled. "Careful up there!" This was not the first time at all that this had happened to Spring. Spring had tried to help him the first time, but the boy always insisted that he loved the climb. As long as he was safe, Spring didn't mind. The girl with the curls had backed up and then ran forward. She had jumped right into Spring's arm. Luckily for her and for Spring and for the red-headed child that was on his head, Spring was pretty well balanced, so none of them fell over. She snuggled up to him and hummed happily in the arms of her favorite animatronic. The children knew that they were safe. Before them came a group of parents. One, with brown curls, he clapped his hands together. "Emily!" The little girl in Spring's arms turned her head to see her father. She smiled at him. Then she turned back to Spring and closed her eyes. The next who spoke was a woman with short orange hair standing beside a man with a thick brown beard. The woman began to laugh at seeing her son on Spring Bonnie's head. "Zach!" Zach turned to the woman and grinned, Spring making the same face at seeing her. A lady who was considerably older than the rest giggled at the sight of her granddaughter. Besides her stood a man who had bright blonde hair and a shaky smile. "Hope!" he called. Hope lifted the rim of her top hat just enough so she could see her father and grandmother. Last, but not least, was a pair of two women who stood at the door. They both rolled their eyes slightly. "Charlie!" they called. Charlie's response was a rather loud snore, instead of being serious at all. Golden knew full well that Charlie was awake. His gaze fell down to the child. One of Charlie's mothers stepped forward and then brought her hands to her chest. "There you are. It's time to go. Say goodbye," she said. Zach whined and began to rub Spring's fur. At the soft touch, he felt himself smile. He knew that this wouldn't be the last time he saw Spring. "Bye, Spring," he said. Spring reached up and gently patted Zach on the top of the head. Zach began to climb down to the floor. Emily gave Spring a tight squeeze around his waist. "I love you, Spring," she said. Spring laughed and found his eyes squeezed shut. He slowly kneeled down and placed Emily down on her feet and made it easier for Zach to slide down his back. He ruffled their hair as the two ran up to their parents, just ready to cause more chaos. Hope had let go of the hat and placed her hands out in front of her. She waved them around and then spun on her heel, her fingers closing and opening. She searched until she bumped into Golden's shins. She giggled and wrapped her arms around his leg. "I love you, Golden Freddy," she said. She held him tight. Charlie, at the same time, let out a loud snore. There was no way he thought that everyone else thought that he was asleep. Golden gave Charlie a gentle squeeze. Then he patted the top of his hat, which was still on Hope's head. "I love you too, but I need my hat back," he replied.
Oh. Oh my goodness. I forgot how cute these little kids are. Like, just, oh my gosh. These kids are just so precious. They're just really sweet and pure, and like that, guys, these kids love Spring and Goldie. Like, they just love them. And just for the record, I do have a comic actually upcoming at some point in the future, not for a while. But I want to go back and see what these kids are doing, and I kind of want them to be reunited with Golden, so there someday, if y'all will help me with this, we'll do another comic with them. Also, fun fact about this comic, the names of the kids, Emily, Zach, Charlie, and Hope, those were actually all picked from the people on the Instagram account. I made a contest. I'm like, yeah, whoever comments this the most gets it. And those were the names that won. So yeah, so these kids are completely my own. I designed them, and I thought it'd be fun to include some extra kids. Also, Purple, seems like you get what you deserve. I will see you all next time on the O Ship Show. Stay tuned for next week for the next episode of The Lost Golden Boy. Hit that subscribe for more great content just like this. See ya!